All right, so today we're going to be talking about what is probably, debatably, the most overlooked sin or the most disregarded aspect of most people's lives, and that's the music we listen to. Not many people talk about this, and it's really kind of a, I don't want to say taboo, but just like people don't talk about it. So my question for you today, just to start off broad once again, does the Bible speak about music or the power of music or what type of music we should listen to?
Yeah, so I peeked over at your Post-it notes.
Yes.
So I've been thinking about it a little bit sitting here. The Bible does talk about music. We know a whole lot about music. We know that Job tells us that when God was creating the world and was creating the earth and things like that, that the angels he had just created sang at the creation. We know that to some degree, now a lot of people debate this, but to some degree, Lucifer, before that he fell, Ezekiel chapter number 28, I believe it is, and Isaiah chapter number 14. Ezekiel really more in chapter 28 tells us that Lucifer was the anointed cherub. He had pipes, the Bible says. He had some sort of lights. There were some sort of stones or something like that. So there was music there. We know that in the book of Revelation, let's back up. Jesus in the upper room, we know that him and his disciples, they sang in hymn, is what it says. We know in Revelation that the saints in Revelation 5, they sing a new song. So music permeates the Bible. The book of Psalms, I was studying that this morning. The book of Psalms is what we call the Hebrew hymn book. It's a song book. It was what was used in the temple. David was a musical person. So again, music's all throughout the Bible. So yes, the Bible does talk a lot about music. The Bible does talk a lot about the kind of music that honors God. In the book of Ephesians, we're told that for a person to be Spirit-filled, one of the mechanisms of being Spirit-filled is to speak to ourselves, internalize psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. It's in Revelation, or excuse me, I said Revelation. It's in Ephesians, and I'll give you the exact passage here. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 18, 19, and 20. So, yes, music is a big deal. Spiritual music is a big deal. Godly music is a big deal. And the Bible talks a lot about it. So I'm imagining we're getting ready to get into that. So that's kind of an overarching thing. Now, in heaven, I think we need to address some things. Okay, in heaven, I'm going to imagine that there is some sort of elements of music. We know in Revelation chapter number 5, get my phone messed up, Revelation chapter number 5, that the 24 elders come out, and in one hand, they're holding vials of the odors of the saints, called the prayers of the saints.
Yeah.
I've preached on the prayer bowls in heaven. On the other hand, they're holding golden harps. So there's music in heaven to some degree. We know that when the archangel, probably Gabriel, sounds the rapture, called the rapture, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, he sounds a trumpet, the shofar. So there's that. We know in the Old Testament, David arranges the temple worship, and there's music there. So music is a big, big, big deal to God.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll get into this. So obviously it's spoken about in the Bible, but is it ever spoken about where talking about the maybe worldly music or music that is not, in correlation with God? And following up with that question, is it sinful to listen to worldly music?
So when it comes to, you've got to define some things. Okay, what is worldly music? What is godly music? What defines it as sin? So let's give an overarching verse, 1 Thessalonians chapter 10, verse 31. Whether therefore ye eat or drink or whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of God. So there's kind of like that overarching umbrella. Okay, so music is going to fall under that umbrella. Is there a verse in the Bible that is going to say music on this radio dial or on this Spotify channel? I guess there's Spotify channels, aren't there? Is that how that works?
Spotify Music,
whatever.
yeah.
Okay. Or on this Apple Music channel or whatever. That's sinful. No, there's not going to be a Bible verse that addresses that with that specificity. So what we do when we don't have a specific thou shalt not verse, we start putting things together with principles.
Yeah.
Okay. So the overarching principle, whether therefore you eat or drink or whatsoever you do all to the glory of God. So when it comes to music, we start identifying things, what is done to the glory of God. So let's go back and identify when you say worldly music. Now, we're going to say these things. Christians, for the most part, there's some of us, we understand these terminologies, but we've got a lot of people that will watch that really don't understand these terminologies.
Yeah.
And I find that a lot with guys that come from TikTok and they come from Facebook and they've got all these, they watch all these reels and, I call it churchianity.
Yeah.
And it's this church talk. What is worldly music? Okay, there's some music that clearly identifies as what I would call sinful. And I would not necessarily do that based off of the tone, based off of the tempo, based off of anything. It's what it talks about. So I'm going to go ahead and make a really controversial statement and just go ahead and risk losing a lot of people. There is the generic, what I would call rap music. Okay, now I'm talking about the kind of rap music that is talking about violence and drugs and sexuality and belittling women and shacking up with everything you can shack up with and smoking everything you can smoke and drinking everything. We're going to go ahead and just identify that over here.
Yeah.
Right? Just vile, wretched, what I would call a lot of this heavy metal music that talks a lot about, back when I was coming up, AC/DC had one, I believe it was called Highway to Hell, I believe was the song. I mean, songs that are just clearly wretched.
Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and cast that over here. I don't think we're going to argue about that, and I don't think anybody out there with half a brain would argue with that. So what we're going to have to start identifying is the worldly music when it comes to stuff that may be a little less... Okay, country music or this kind of music.
Gray area.
Gray area music, I like it, but I don't know. So you've got to start applying principles. Number one, what are they talking about in that song? Right?
Yeah.
I say a lot. I was just sitting here thinking about that. Sorry, my ADD. When you talk about country music songs, rock and roll songs, that clearly, once you start listening to it,
Yeah.
okay, they're talking about being unfaithful to your spouse, or they're talking about getting putting a beer in my hand, and come on, what are we doing? Don't be stupid. Let's not argue these things. Now, if the world wants to argue those things, that's their business. But I mean, Christians, the people of God, we're not going to argue those things. Things that I don't even remember some of these lyrics. I wouldn't know anything about modern music. I don't listen to a ton of music, but those kind of things, we're not going to argue about those. Okay, so then getting closer, what about stuff that has a country music tone or it has a country music flavor, but it's talking about something spiritual? I think that's what we're going to start getting into, and so I'm sure you're going to talk about that. That would be where we're going to argue.
Yeah.
The boot scootin' boogie, we probably aren't going to be arguing too much over the boot scootin' boogie.
Yeah.
That's an old song. You wouldn't have any idea what boot scootin' boogie is. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to normal, now where you and I are from, brother, they argue over everything. Is it contemporary? Is it modern?
Yeah.
Is it Southern gospel? Is it country? That's going to be where we're going to argue a little bit and disagree a little bit.
So backing up just a little bit, we talked about this, but is there ever Like, I find it interesting. To my knowledge, I don't remember anything that would be like a pagan worship or anything in the Bible where they use songs in a negative manner. Am I?
There's not going to be exact verses that talk about the pagan worship because that's not really what the Bible was meant to talk about.
Yeah.
In a lot of those ancient temples, the temples of Dagon, the temples of Molech, the temples in the New Testament, the temples of Pan, worship was always associated with there was always music of some degree. A lot of those had temple prostitutes, and a lot of those had temple meats and idols and things like that.
Yeah.
They were there, but the Bible's not going to talk about those things simply because that's not really what the Bible wasn't there to show you what they did in the temple of Dagon, the book of Judges.
Yeah.
That's not what the Bible's all about. But it's there. The music's there. The things they did are there.
Yeah.
They are there. But just because the Bible doesn't talk about it doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah.
Secular, whatever, it's all there. Yes, it's there.
So let's jump back forward then to like you said, the gray area music, music that maybe doesn't, have any swearing in it, maybe not any suggestive themes or anything.
Right.
Stuff you and I would call family friendly, maybe not Christian, maybe not talking about God or anything, but
Right.
What is your opinion on that? Is that right or wrong, or is it a...
So I think each one of those, you've got to take each song, each situation as it goes. So the overarching theme, can I glorify God with it? Now, we're going to be getting too specific here, but I'll give you an illustration. If you've got a husband and wife, all right, and they are, or a couple that gets married, and they're going to have their first dance, they're probably not going to dance to Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
Probably not. Now, they could, but I doubt it. They're probably going to find some sort of love song. Now, if this love song is talking about a husband and a wife and, love one another, and they're doing that in the confines, I can see how they would glorify God with that, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've seen some guys, I've got some preacher friends of mine. Man, they're good singers. They really are. And their wife would come into the room. We'd be eating lunch somewhere, and their wife would come in the room, and one of them would just start singing Elvis's old song, I Can't Help Falling in Love with You.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I could see how you would glorify God with that. So I think each one of those, you've got to take it on an individual basis.
Yeah.
I don't think that there is one sword swipe application where you can just say, okay, all music played on 95.3 FM is bad.
Yeah.
No more than you can say all music played on this is good. I think when you get to a certain spot in the road, you're going to have to start making situational applications to different things.
Yeah.
I've said it a long time, and I joke about it, but it is true. Anything that I can sanctify, I'm going to do my best to sanctify and give God glory from it.
Oh, yeah.
So that would be my answer to that. Okay, so I'll give you an illustration. Can a man that is cheating on his wife go to church and sing Amazing Grace? Do you think that honors God? He's cheating on his wife. He's at a different church with his girlfriend. Now, we're going crazy, but you know what I'm saying? He's at a church with his girlfriend. They're out of town. They're shacking up. But you know what? They're going to sanctify this and go to church. And they're in sin, and they sing Amazing Grace. You think that honors God?
I think in that moment, possibly.
No, absolutely not. No. Because God judges the motive of the heart.
Yeah.
You can't tell. No, okay. You and Sydney go out on your, you've got a 1-year anniversary coming up in a couple of months. You go and you're sitting by the Cumberland River in downtown Nashville.
Yeah.
And you look at her, and I don't think you sing a whole lot, but you look at her and you start singing to her, I Can't Help Falling in Love with You.
Yeah.
That's a secular song.
Yeah.
You think that honors God?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying now.
You see where I'm going?
Yeah.
I think the situation is going to apply there. I believe that. So that would be my answer. I just don't think there's a hard and fast on that.
Yeah. I feel like I've asked this question on literally every podcast for the past month.
You ask the same question over and over, but it's okay. I'm with you.
Do you think discernment has a role to play in music?
Yeah, absolutely. You know the problem? Very few people have good discernment.
Yeah.
The further we're getting into this thing, the closer we're getting to the coming of the Lord. people just don't have good discernment. They're acting like they do, they say they do, but they just don't.
Yeah.
It's just not there. Discernment has a big role to play. And I've said this, and I've never, ever, ever lined up with a specific camp when it comes to music, when it comes to church. I just don't. I've always been my own man. I've always walked my own path. And I have told you this. I say this all the time in church. If I could figure out a way to sanctify an achy, breaky heart, I would do it.
Yeah.
Now, again, you can't do that, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think too many times we get hung up in camps and in cliques, and you go to a certain church, and no, we're not doing that mess. Discernment is the ticket. But that doesn't mean that just because somebody says they have it means they have it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that I'm watching right now, a lot of churches, and they're very popular, they're very well known, they've got worldwide ministries, and I'm watching some of the stuff they're putting out, and I'm the judge of no man's heart, okay? But I'm sitting there looking, and I'm saying, that doesn't pass the smell test type thing. I don't know about that. That's, I don't know. I don't think that God has a certain look. I don't think you've got to wear a three-piece suit. I don't think you have to wear a coat and tie. I wear a coat and tie. I believe it's a good practice.
Yeah.
I believe that it shows the seriousness, but I don't think that just because somebody wears blue jeans and tennis shoes that they love God less than me.
Yeah.
I do think that there is a certain level of, okay, what are we trying to put off? What are we doing here? Not everybody that wears a coat and tie loves God. That's not what we're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking at some of these people that say they have discernment with their music.
Yeah.
I don't see what we're doing. Music should glorify God.
Yeah.
Music should lift your soul to think more about God. Music, when you listen to it, it should make you desire to be more holy. It should make you desire to love God more. Jesus said in John chapter number 4, I believe it is, John 4, yes, that the Lord seeks those that worship Him to worship Him in spirit and in truth.
Yeah.
When you worship God, especially with music, it should make you think of God more and think more of God. It should make you learn. You should know something more about God when you sing.
Yeah.
And you should think more of Him. Music that makes you take your mind off of God. And so that's kind of the smell test. It's the spirit truth test. Now, I think the problem with that is music is very cultural. Very cultural.
Yeah.
Okay. What they sing, how they sing in Africa is very different than how they sing in Nashville.
Exactly.
Okay. How they sing in California is very different from how they sing in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Man, when we go to Kentucky and preach, it is just strings out the yin-yang, guitars and banjos and fiddles and all these things. You got to California, it's pianos and trumpets and all these things.
Exactly.
So music's very cultural. And we got to be careful not to allow cultural things to equal discernment things.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
So jumping back to the gray area of songs where you can sometimes use secular songs to glorify God.
Right.
There's going to be some people who probably argue that they can glorify God through songs that are probably in coordinates with other themes that probably should. Mm-hmm. So let's say, for instance, someone has a wife and he's listening to a song that may have a few words here and there, maybe a few suggestive themes. Can those things coexist?
I don't think so. I think you may want to try to make them coexist. A couple of things that I would say. Number one, can I listen to this and it not grieve my spirit? Number two, can I listen to this knowing that Jesus listens with me? I think that's going to take a lot of the songs out of the place.
Yeah.
It's going to just absolutely demolish a lot of those suggestive theme songs, those songs that cuss here and cuss there. Listen, I don't want to hear that stuff.
Yeah.
That grieves God. We're not doing that stuff. And I think our unwillingness to draw a hard and fast line somewhere has made us absolute snowflake theologians and pastors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm willing to draw a line. I'm willing to say there are some things we just don't do. We're not going there.
Yeah.
I think that is a real truth.
Yeah.
So I do think that you've got to draw the line there, Avery. I think that let me say this. Those suggestive themes, those suggestive songs, those songs that have some language in it, they've got some things, it's a little squishy. I'm going to tell you what I don't find. I don't find mature believers struggling with those, dealing with those, listening to those. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't find that. So I have a hard time listening to a new believer and immature believer try to convince a mature believer that they're right.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that.
Yeah. Like you always say, if there's a reason you're trying to find a loophole.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
If you are trying to find a way out, there's usually a reason.
Oh, yeah. Very interesting. So we'll move on to one of the next questions. So this is very interesting to me. So getting into why we don't want to listen to this stuff, can it truly influence your thoughts and your actions?
Absolutely. Yeah. How many times have you been riding down the road and you have not thought about a song in who knows how long, and the words just come to you?
Yeah. That's good.
Music has power. I preached a sermon one time on the power of music. Music has incredible ability. There are a lot of things we have a hard time memorizing, but there are certain songs we listen to them one time, and the tune is there, the melody is there, the words are there, the lyrics are there, and it goes to the incredible power of music.
Yeah.
With that said, I think what ends up happening is we are so ignorant, so humanistic in our thinking, we don't see the spiritual power of the music. It's there.
Yeah.
It is there. That's why we teach our kids how to learn the ABCs by putting it in a song.
Oh, that's good.
That's why we have certain songs. People right now watching that are over the age of 35 know how a bill becomes a law. Do you know how they know it?
How's that?
A song was sung to them in school by a program called Schoolhouse Rock. A bill becomes a law. And man, we can see the song. You don't even know. You look it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
You listen to that song one time, buddy, it's going to be in your head.
Yeah.
Music has unbelievable power. It has power to evoke emotions. That's why Saul in the Old Testament, Saul's demon-possessed. Saul is overwhelmed by spirits. David plays music, and it calms him down.
Yeah.
It's got incredible power. Music can elicit. That's why there's psychology about certain songs they play in restaurants.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You never studied that?
No.
Oh, listen. You go into certain fast food restaurants at certain times of the day, they'll be playing fast beat songs because it makes you eat faster.
Yeah.
You go into certain high-end restaurants, they'll be playing soft music.
Yeah.
Do you know why? Makes you stay longer. When you stay longer, you buy more.
Yeah.
It's a psychology to it. Music has unbelievable. I can't believe you've never,
No,
in all your
never
TikTok
studied.
rabbit holes, you've never gone down that rabbit hole.
No, I mean, it makes sense. I've studied like marketing, like the effects of colors and stuff, which
Absolutely.
I imagine are virtually the same thing.
It's
but
almost the same thing. If you'll watch it, a lot of times when you go into, we've gone downtown to the restaurant we talked about, Jeff Ruby's.
Yeah.
At a certain point in the night, if you watch it, they're playing music over the speakers. And we went a couple of weeks ago for my birthday. Somebody had given us a gift card, and they're playing this music. And a certain time, we were there. Now, we were on the other end of the restaurant. You've got to walk past. They've got this guy on this piano,
Yeah.
and he's in the bar.
Yeah.
Again, I don't go near the bar. I don't have any desire to go. But he's playing, and the more he plays, the more people that come into the bar. The more people that come into the bar, the more they buy.
Yeah.
There is a power to music.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the next question, this is a pretty popular question, is how do you balance cultural relevance while also maintaining spiritual integrity?
These are big words.
Yes. I almost couldn't say them.
Break them down a little bit more here.
Well, for instance, I mean, I'm going to use a youth pastor for example. I do think, once again, you are to stay pure and all these things, but there are new languages and new cultural things that happen, and sometimes there are times where understanding those things can be helpful. So a lot of people ask this on TikTok specifically. I see it in the comment sections all the time. is it important to stay up to date with some of these things, even though they may not be the most Christian, but that way you know what is going on? That's can be applied in any realm, but specifically in music today. Do you think it's important to be aware of the current world?
Well, yes and no. I think to use that line just so you can do these things is wrong.
Yeah.
God knows the intents of our heart. He knows the motives. He knows why we're doing what we're doing. He knows why we're asking what we're asking and going where we're going. So somebody that says, well, I want to make sure I stay up to date and I can reach the culture or whatever, so I'm going to listen to this song. I'm going to do this thing. Where does that end?
Yeah.
Are you going to watch pornography? Are you going to cheat on your wife so that you know what somebody goes through? Now, those are far extremes, but where does it end?
Yeah.
Where's the line? I do think that you have to stay updated to a certain degree, and you can do that through safe mechanisms. I mean, I watch the news.
Yeah.
I listen to the news on YouTube and things like that. But I don't think but I don't go down those I don't listen to a lot of music.
Yeah.
I could not tell you today who is and is not the singer or not.
Yeah.
I've heard the name Jelly Roll, but I can't say that I've ever heard a song.
Yeah.
And if Jelly Roll's watching, great. I think it's fantastic. But but my point, I don't think anybody would say that I'm out of date.
Yeah.
I do think that there is a certain element where, you want to stay up to date with what you need to wear. We don't want to wear what we wore back in 1910.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I would not. I think you got to go to what is the motive. All right. Yeah. I've seen these guys, and I'm going to say something. This is going to be wildly unpopular, massively unpopular, incredibly unpopular. But I've seen these guys on Instagram, and I don't look at a whole lot of Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that. I don't even get on TikTok. But I'm watching these guys get tattoos and pierce everything, and they're believers. They say they're preachers.
Yeah.
And they say they do it to reach people.
Yeah.
Come on, boys. I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, we don't have to smell like the hogs in order to pull somebody out of the hog pen.
Exactly.
Jesus ate with sinners, but he did not. I think the line there is the express purpose was to win them, but he didn't drink their alcohol.
Yeah.
He didn't. I heard a guy one time preacher went into a bar and bought the bar a round of beers so that he could witness to them.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you could witness to him without that.
Yeah.
I don't want to judge the heart of a man. I would never do that. But come on, what are we doing here? And so go back to the music. I digress there. I don't think that you've got to know every single song today and listen to every single song today in order to preach the gospel and win people.
Yeah.
The heart of man never changes, Avery. Man is a sinner. I don't need to know how that man sins to know he's a sinner.
Yeah.
So I would answer it like that. Cultural relevance, spiritual integrity. I understand the premise, but I don't think I would necessarily agree with the depth that a lot of these current, again, it's the lack of discernment. They're going way too far with this stuff.
Oh, yeah. And I think, once again, you're supposed to, this applies in all things, music, tattoos, anything. Whether you can argue all day whether those things are right or wrong, but at the end of the day, you're supposed to look and be separate from the world.
Absolutely.
We're not supposed to blend in.
Yeah, and that's a ridiculous mindset that I need to do this in order to be able to witness. No.
Yeah.
The power of somebody's witness is their relationship with God. God opens up doors for somebody who is unlike somebody and wins them.
Yeah.
Listen, let's talk about the crowd on TikTok, all right? I want you to look at me. I am as far away from TikTok friendly. I mean, I wear a 3-piece suit.
Yes, this is true.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, right now I'm wearing a sweatshirt and a collared shirt with khaki pants. I'm basically Jake from State Farm.
Yes.
But God's given me favor with that.
Yeah.
That's not because I look a certain way or look like them. God gave me that favor.
Yeah.
The same with music. I think to say I've got to listen to rap so that I can witness to people that listen to rap, don't be stupid.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
We posted a clip not long ago using that same story you talked about where the preacher went into the bar, and it actually got a lot of, a lot of people disagreed.
I'm sure they do.
But they disagreed on the premise that Jesus was around those people and Jesus was around sinners. And here's the issue I find with that is I'm not Jesus. I know I'm not nearly as strong at probably fighting the possibility of addiction and temptation that comes from those things as Jesus did. I mean, Jesus literally never sinned. And so would you agree that that's your...
Let's say it like this. Jesus ate with sinners.
Yeah.
He did not eat like sinners.
Yeah.
Jesus went to win them. He didn't go to be them.
Yeah.
I promise you Jesus did not buy a round at the bar. I can promise you that. I guarantee that. I'll stand with that and on that until I go to heaven.
Yeah.
And then when we all get there, you're going to see you were wrong.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I think this mindset, I have a really hard time with Laodicean Christians lecturing me.
Yeah.
I am not I am not that holier than thou guy. You know that. I'm a sinner just like anybody else. But I'm not going to listen to somebody justifying their sin to me just because they want to sin. I don't think so. That's the most. And so if you're watching and you disagreed with me on that TikTok mentality, I'm sorry, you're wrong. I don't know any other way to say that.
Yeah.
I'm not right about everything, but I'm right about that.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, it is what it is.
We'll jump into our final question here. And
you get nervous when I talk about these things.
This is
you get very nervous.
No, I don't necessarily get nervous.
Avery's always afraid that I'm going to get us canceled.
Oh, yeah, it's going to happen one day. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But
it's okay.
We're going to jump to this last question. This
All
is
right.
going to step on some toes here. I've heard this one several times.
All right.
People listen to music and be like, it doesn't affect me. I don't drink. I don't cuss. I don't do any of these things. I don't feel convicted about the music I listen to. And some of the people I've heard say this, I believe they're saved. I mean, I know
Probably.
no one knows that.
All right.
But what would you say to the lack of conviction for listening to this music?
So that's actually a really good question that I would address twofold. Number one, there's two ways that something doesn't convict someone. Number one, they're not saved. Or number two, their conscience has been seared. Paul talks about that our conscience can be seared as with a hot iron. So let's address as if these people are saved. These people are truly right with God. They're saved, but they're listening to stuff and they're saying, I'm not bothered by this. That's probably because they've gotten numb to it.
Yeah.
You can get there. You can get there. And so this would be the test that I would be willing to have them take. Stop listening to it for the course of 30 days. Spend time in the Bible. Ask God to show you His way. Lord, what should bother me and what shouldn't? Spend 30 days away from that music. And when you go back to it, see if it bothers you.
Yeah.
Because I promise you, when you give yourself over to the Spirit of God in His holiness and His goodness, and then you start moving back, you will start feeling that conviction.
Yeah.
I have dealt with that in different things in my life. I have dealt with that years ago. You're not gonna. Years and years ago, before I had children, I used to play these video games. I played I had an Xbox.
Yeah.
And one day the Spirit of God got to dealing with me about the time that I was spending playing those video games. That I could be doing something better with that I could be praying or studying and all these things. And so I finally gave it up, and I gave that time to God. Fast forward down the way. I started going back thinking, well, okay, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Started playing this video, and man, the Holy Spirit started really, it got all over me.
Yeah.
And what I found was, back here, the reason it didn't bother me is I had seared myself to that. But the closer I got to God this way, when you try to go back, you'll find,
Yeah.
it's a deal.
Oh, yeah.
And so I would challenge anybody that says, I'm not convicted by it. Give yourself to God for 30 days. Separate yourself from that thing for 30 days. and see what God says to you. That would be my challenge.